In this poem, Carter shows his fury at the exploitation of sugar plantation workers in Guyana in the Caribbean. He will not be silenced, and his anger now infuses all parts of his daily life and sleep. No, I will not still my voice. I have too much to claim. If you see me looking at books or coming to your house or walking in the sun, know that I look for fire. I have learnt from books, dear friend, of men dreaming and living and hungering in a room without a light, who could not die since death was far too poor, who did not sleep to dream, but dreamed to change the world. And so, if you see me looking at your hands, listening when you speak, marching in your ranks, you must know I do not sleep to dream, but dream to change the world. It's a dramatic opening, isn't it? And we need to both read on and understand the background to the poem to establish what it is that the persona is refusing to do. However, it is clearly an affirmation of his right for his voice to be heard, however awkward the message is for some, presumably British, readers. Some of you may know the great hymn, Dear Lord and Father of Mankind, which ends notably, "O still small voice of calm." Sorry for terrible singing. This second line from Carter's poem echoes these biblical words and suggests that there is religious justification for his angry voice to be heard. There is a great deal for the persona to draw our attention to, certainly far too much for his voice to be silenced. The verb claim may also imply that some of what is due to him, and by extension those he is speaking on behalf of, has not been fairly provided, hence the need for this poem. Looking at books, popping round to someone's house, or sunning yourself outside sound initially like everyday, mundane activities. Not so in this poem, when such actions are underpinned by a raging, burning fury as the persona seeks justice. Fire can cause widespread damage and destroy swathes very quickly. The persona is so angered by the oppression of the sugar plantation workers that he feels that peaceful inertia is unlikely to provoke the change required. The imperative no is distinctive at the beginning of line 9, isn't it? It reveals a steely determination to communicate with both his dear friend and the wider world that he means business. Conflict and confrontation may be necessary to resolve things. Know this, all you readers and British bigots. This persona seems keen to emphasise that he is an informed, educated protester, hence the two references to books. He has a dear friend who is even more implicated in the exploitation, whom he is very keen to show his support for. All human beings dream and live, but we hope that very few hunger in a room without a light. As we read line 12, we identify with the men harbouring hopes and aspirations, and feel enormous pity in line 13 as we realise that such ordinary, deserving human beings are suffering so terribly. Notice the breathless enjambment across lines 10 to 15. I have learnt from books, dear friend, of men dreaming and living and hungering in a room without a light, who could not die since death was far too poor, who did not sleep to dream. The effect is breathless and stifling. These workers have not had the space and freedom and air they merit as human beings. The personification of death is interesting and unusual here. Normally we would expect personification to make the abstract seem more powerful and the human less so, but the reverse is the case here. Death is nowhere near rich or powerful enough to be able to take on these worthy, brimming with rich potential sugar plantation workers. Modern readers may well recall Martin Luther King's famous "I Have a Dream" speech when reading these lines, although it's worth pointing out that Carter published his poem in 1951, whereas Martin Luther King spoke in 1963. Both poems are fighting for change and against racial prejudice. It is the world that is needed to be changed, not just Guyana. The persona and his dear friend are coming up against institutionalized barriers and prejudices. Change will not occur easily, hence the past tense used here and the need to actively hunt out fire in the first stanza. Stanza 3 echoes the second part of stanza 1. This circular structure creates a sense of finality and of returning to reiterate a crucial point. The persona is determined to shout out again and again about the plight of his fellow Guyanese. In stanza 1, the persona could be seen looking at books, but this is far too passive to instigate any kind of change, and so in stanza 3, he is looking at his dear friend's hands. Hands can reveal a great deal about the kind of life lived by a person. The hands of the privileged, say, will be soft and largely unmarked. The hands of a sugar plantation worker, on the other hand, are likely to be full of painful-looking sores with rough, torn skin. These hands act as a visual symbol of injustice. The mood is even more intense and grimly determined in these final lines. Looking at your hands, listening when you speak, marching in your ranks. There are no pauses, no oars, just the breathless call for action. No more time must be wasted. Marching in your ranks conjures up images of waves of soldiers walking resolutely towards battle. The inference here is that an organised military response of some description might be necessary in order to force the requisite change. Just like the final line of the second stanza, the final line of the third and final stanza consists of a whopping 12 syllables, which implies that, sadly, change may take some considerable time. Nonetheless, the persona is unquestionably invested in the fight, hence beginning the line with the first person I. Sleep is not for idle rest, but for reimagining a world free from exploitation, discrimination, and racial prejudice. Why not have a go now at planning topic sentences and juicy quotations, which could be weaved into an outstanding essay? The title, Explore How Looking at Your Hands Presents Strong Feelings. So make some specific points about this and choose some quotations that lend themselves to detailed, juicy AO2 analysis. Get started. You've got it. Pause time. Within my plan, in my first main paragraph, I would make the point that the persona feels furious at any notion that he shouldn't protest against exploitation. I would then back this up and explore the quotation, "No, I will not still my voice." In my next paragraph, I would start off by stating that the persona feels indignant and upset about the suffering experienced by the oppressed. I would then explore the polysyndeton and the enjambment within men dreaming and living and hungering. In my next main paragraph, I would start by saying the persona feels that active protest is necessary in order to instigate change. My quotation would be, listening when you speak, marching in your ranks. Here's a paragraph from my grade 9 response. The persona feels furious at any notion that he shouldn't protest against exploitation. The poem opens with a dramatic, "No, I will not still my voice." It is significant that the first line only contains the single word "no," which shows the extent of the persona's fury and any concept that he should not be able to speak out against the oppression of sugar plantation workers by the British in Guyana. Meanwhile, the use of the verb still creates a more rhetorical feel and has echoes of the famous line in the Bible about God's still small voice. The implication is that the treatment of the workers is so shameful that figuratively even God might be compelled to speak out about it. Finally, note the use of exclamation marks at the end of both lines, reflecting the persona's anger. Such maltreatment must be shouted about and brought to the attention of the wider public, hence the publication of this poem.